Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is a Monday, and all of our guests today, including Bruce Boudreau, standing by, brought to you by Passant Motors. It's March mayhem at Passant all month long. Choose either no GST, 4.99 financing on 2020 or newer vehicles, or a $2,000 trade-in bonus. Get all the info at PassantMotors.com. Joined now by former Canucks head coach, now with the NHL Network, doing an outstanding job there, Bruce Boudreau. Bruce, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Been a little busy lately, but I guess that's better than not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Bruce, Canucks have won 4 straight, 5-1-1 in their last 7 after a real tough February when they had a difficult schedule. What are you seeing from them?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking they've only had one little rough spot all year. So, I mean, and they've corrected that. I mean, they just, it could have been worse, like they went through that rough spot, and then they're playing what looked like 3 good teams, and they beat all 3 of them. So, I mean, I think they're back to where they were, and they're a team that believes, and they're going to be tough to beat.
A guy you know well, Thatcher Demers, is hurt right now. He played 11 of 13 games in February, and again, he's now injured. Bruce, as a coach, how do you ride that line between playing your stud, your number one guy, and doing what's best for his health and the team?
Well, a lot of times you're asking him how he feels, I think. And, you know, I left in Van, I left 98% of that up to Ian, who's one of the best goalie coaches in the league. So, I mean, I left it all up to him, and we would start at the beginning of the month and say, when do you think Thatcher could play? And we'd go through everything that he could. And it got a little more difficult the second year because he was hurt a lot of the time. But we'd go through that. Then Ian would go through it with Thatcher, and they'd come up to how much you should play, how much you shouldn't play, and where could we find days to rest. And because I think everybody knows now how important not only, you know, goaltending is, but I mean the schedule of how much they play is. I mean, it's I think almost gone are the days where you know, Marty Boudreau played 70 plus games every year type thing. I mean, and I think they did a great job in getting Casey as the backup, and they'll probably, I don't know how bad Demers hurt, but I mean, they'll probably give him a couple days off because I'm sure they don't want him to be hurt coming down the stretch. They're pretty solidified in whatever spot at least first in the Pacific. So, I mean, it's not a question of them having to win every game to get in the playoffs these days.
Hey, Bruce, I'm going to go back 3 years with Höglander, right back to Travis Green. A lot of healthy scratches for that kid, a lot of fourth line, but he never gave up. He's got 20 goals, even strength, Bruce. What are you seeing from him this year? He's putting it together. He's
having a fabulous year. And, I mean, he always had that kind of skill. I mean, as far as offense goes, I think what he had to learn, and I remember talking to Jim and Patrick as soon as they arrived and saying that I think that he should go into the minors and learn the game a little bit. He didn't understand a little bit on the defense and the responsibility game, and I think he went down there and they did a great job with him in Abbotsford, and he's come back and now he's responsible, but he still has that explosiveness. He still has, and the biggest thing I see, he's got confidence. I mean, so many times before he got sent down when I was there is that he'd have the puck in the slot and he'd miss it or he'd fan on it or whatever. And now it gets on his stick and that thing's in the net and or close to it. So, I mean, the very first year, I think he got 13 goals or something in the lockout year, and he looked fabulous. But he had to learn how to play the 200-foot game for him to play, and I think he's got that down pat. And even some games now, you look at him, and he's not on the fourth line; he's on the first line. So good for him. He's kept at it, kept with it, and he's done a great job.
Bruce, let's go back to the trade deadline last week. You last year saw all these rumors about Miller to Pittsburgh. This year it was Canucks trying to get Gensel. But anyways, a lot of teams loaded up. Edmonton, Colorado, Vegas, Dallas got Tanev. Who did the best at the deadline in some of those top teams in the West in your eyes, Bruce?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, sometimes doing nothing is the best. I think if the Rangers had done nothing last year, they would have won the first round. But
Right.
chemistry is obviously very good in Vancouver. It didn't have to do much. They did their trading during the course of the season when you get Zadorov and Lindholm. So, I mean, just because they don't do anything on that day or too much on that day doesn't mean they didn't improve the team. But, I mean, I think you saw Colorado trying to improve their team pretty well. Edmonton went for some. I think they did good in getting Henrique, who can play in the in the bottom six, which if they use them is going to be very valuable. Calgary did what they had to do in getting a lot of choices. But I mean, Vegas in the Pacific is the team that everybody's talking about because they added an awful lot of money and who knows how they could sneak it in. But getting Hanifin, I think was huge, and Mantha and Hurdle. If Hurdle comes back and can play like the way he played when he was, a couple of years ago. I mean, it's been tough for him this year only because he's on an island. He's by himself. There wasn't a lot of great players for him to play with. So, I mean, but he's got the talent and the skill, but is he going to be ready and in shape ready by the time the playoffs come? Because it's going to happen pretty quickly. And if they get Mark Stone back, I mean, then you're adding guys to the lineup at the end, and sometimes it's an easy transition. Sometimes it's a lot tougher one. But I mean, especially when you're coming from a new team, I don't know how much time he'll have to practice before the playoffs round start to come up. So we'll see. But go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead, Bruce. Finish up.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, Calgary did what they had to do.
Yeah.
And San Jose. I mean, they didn't have much to work with, but they tried to get some returns on what they had. So the Pacific Division was there. I mean, but I do think, I mean, Tanev going to Dallas. I think Dallas was as strong deep wise, four lines, six defense. So they didn't have to add much. So they got him. So, I mean, I think the West in all did an awful lot more than the East.
Hey, Bruce, early on when you first took over as head coach of the Canucks, the people at Canucks.com had you mic'd up. And I always remember this at practice. And Elias Pettersson was struggling at the time. And you had a real solid heart-to-heart with him. It was something else. What was your reaction to Elias recently getting his 8-year extension at $11.6 per?
Oh, I thought it was great for him. I mean, I texted him right away and congratulated him, and thought it was well earned. There's not too many 25-year-olds in the game that are going to get 100 points plus in back-to-back seasons, and probably for the next 5 to 6 years after this. So, I mean, I was really proud of him the way he put his head down and started working. He struggled. His wrist was still sore at certain times, but I mean, he persevered and I think, and I love what JT's done, but I mean, JT's going to be 31 next year. So you're going to need that number one center, and they're hard to find. And Elias is going to be one for at least the next 8 years.
And just one more, Bruce, if you don't mind. It took a while, but John Tortorella got ejected over the weekend. Any memorable ejections from your days coaching in the NHL or anywhere else?
Well, I've been ejected a couple times, but more in the minor leagues than the NHL. I mean, I've been fined and threatened to be fined, and I know ownership, whatever team I was on that I got fined, never came up and said, "Hey, you go for it. We'll pay the fine." That's carte blanche for coaches. I tell you, that makes it easy. But no, I mean, when you get kicked out of a game, I think with the NHL when he said I'm not going. I don't think the NHL really took to that too kindly.
Bruce, thanks for this. Appreciate it. We'll get you back on. Thanks so much.
Okay, take care, guys. Thank you for having me.